You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
So I was doing some cleaning, as we do, during this pandemic times. And I don't know about you, but whenever I get like a new purse, a new bag, I don't do it very often, but I just take the old one and I just kind of put it away with all the stuff still in it. I'm like, I haven't looked for any of that. Yeah. I haven't looked for any of this stuff, so I don't need it. Yep. So then I was searching for, actually it's embarrassing, I was searching for some change because we have no money right now. Everything's with cards, right? And I needed actual money. And I was searching around and I went into the bottom of the bag and I found 2 lipsticks I lost. And it was in the old days when I went to like an actual cosmetic counter. Mm-hmm. No, I don't mean to make anyone feel bad about drugstores. I buy a lot of drugstore cosmetics as well, but this was the real stuff, really good stuff. And I put it on and it was magical. And does it expire? Like I can't remember. I hear that it does, but then I don't know when the last time was I used it.
I think as long as it still smells vaguely like it's not rancid or it's not clumped, just keep using it.
Because all of us have paid absurd money for lipstick.
Yes.
And then promptly misplaced it. And when you find it 6 months later, you're not going to just throw away a $50 lipstick.
No, but I do feel like now that I was lost for so long and I've been living in these different times, when I tried it on again, I was like, maybe it was worth it. Maybe that really was how I should have been spending my money.
It was worth it.
It was different and it is better, right? Do you think?
Yeah, I'm holding up the most expensive lipstick I've ever bought. I bought it, I believe, with Andrea Gin. And I do not regret this still to this day. And
is it like a Chanel red or something?
No, it's like some fancy French or Italian brand that I had literally never heard of.
Me neither.
And it was
a Christmas present to yourself.
It was a Christmas present to myself.
Yeah, but if you're still wearing it and you love it, then that was good value, I say, says Lisa the Economist.
And I had lost it in a purse that I hadn't used since forever because let's face it, I was already so sick through January and February, I barely left my house. And then we've been in pandemic times basically since March. So I have not left my house a lot, nor have I used a purse very much. And I found it like 2 months ago in one of my purse cleaning binges. And since then, I've had it sitting next to my side table. And I put it on almost every other week when we do this. I switch out different lipsticks today.
Can you lift it up so I can see what the outside of the lipstick?
I thought you were going to just be like, you just look at it before you go to sleep.
It is very beautiful, though. It's very compact. It's gold. Is it gold or silver?
Yeah, gold.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
I keep it beside my bedside because normally I put on lipstick to record this with you guys because, it's just nice to bring a fresh
the only time I put on lipstick is when I see you guys through.
Today I am a trash bag though. Like I've been allergy and sick all week, so I'm just like, I got nothing for you. I didn't even put on eyebrows for you guys today.
I'm not gonna say anything.
I had to go out and do this sort of like it was recording a video at SFU on Tuesday, and that meant like putting on nice clothes and doing the hair and
like with like there wasn't an elastic waistband.
Yeah, and it was like I wore like a skirt.
Cool.
Did you put on a bra?
I wore I wore like leather shoes.
Wow.
Wow. It felt so weird.
But have you done that?
Weird.
Have you done that thing where you put on lipstick and then realized you have to wear a mask? Because I've done that.
Oh, I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I thought about that beforehand, and I had to wait till I got there to put on lipstick.
That's smart.
But it felt really strange.
Yeah, I haven't really worn normal clothes in a very long time. In fact, let's be honest, the reason I hadn't looked in a purse is why would I need a purse? For what? Where am I going?
I know.
Like, I don't carry anything.
That's so weird, isn't it? Because it's I found myself browsing at bags online and just all of a sudden realizing like I don't need a bag.
I've just forgotten the concept of looking. Like I actually went out my house and up to a busy busy shopping districts. I had to get dog food and I'd run out. And it wasn't until I was in the store that I went, I'm wearing yoga pants, Birkenstocks, and a Metallica t-shirt. Like I gave that little care when I walked out the door. I didn't even like, it was an outfit that was just fit for maybe gardening, like where you hope no one sees you.
The number of times I have walked out of the apartment to, go run an errand or something and realized that I was still in my inside the house shoes, like the sandals that I walk around in. And then I have to walk back to my apartment to put on normal shoes because I can't. Yeah, it's.
But just for a minute, am I wrong on like we always talked about like sandals or Birkenstocks and socks as being really bad, but a yoga pant Birkenstock combination is really alarming, don't you think?
I mean, I don't think there are rules anymore, dude. Like I think it's
that's good.
You know what? I mean, just getting out of the house is sort of like a bit of a triumph sometimes.
Plus, I just also felt like let down Metallica. Like you guys are like kind of an awesome band, like of like angry men and doing things, and I'm just shuffling up to get pet food in my Master of Puppets t-shirt. Just who I don't know anymore. Like, what is that? Who am I?
So many questions.
It's I went out today and it's summer dress time in Kitsilano. You know that look, that sort of
yes,
sort of like hippie dress.
Andrea and I don't have to worry about that over here in East Vancouver.
Yeah, no one has smelled an ocean breeze in months here in East Vancouver.
I also want to add, no one stared at me differently, so I agree with you. The rules have changed.
Rules have changed.
That looked completely normal. I think she's a girl working from home, just picking up some dog food. I salute you.
Honestly, I find it difficult making eye contact now with strangers in public, whereas I used to do it all the time. Now I'm studiously avoiding it. And
why? Because you feel like you're not dressed up?
No, because I don't care about. I don't like
don't
people
care
anymore.
what they have to say anymore.
But like I used to. I don't know if you guys remember this, but a bit of a people pleaser, friend to all,
totally.
et cetera, et cetera. I think I've been desocialized now.
Are you saying no to engagement?
That was so fast. It only took a couple months.
It did.
I think but I think again, tack on that January, February. That was really key. So I think because I remember in January and February I missed people, and then March hit and we were locked back in. And I was like, I don't care. Maybe this is fine.
A lot of your friends listen to this.
I know, and I guess this is where the final note.
Whoa.
No, like I'm fine with like
rude awakening, Andrea Warner's friends.
It's harsh. No,
Here's why you haven't seen her.
I miss hugging people, but I feel like until I can hug people again, I'm not that eager to show up in their space, and particularly though I was referring to strangers. I used to make eye contact with strangers and smile at them. I would try to offer them a kind nod. I would try to look at them warmly in case anyone hadn't smiled at them that day, because I know that this is a thing that happens in Vancouver. I take it very personally. And I'm out now. Sorry. It's pandemic rules.
I don't know if we've really fully grasped the changes that we've made personally and as a society. I still think we're in a very, we're 2 weeks in advance or a week?
One.
Okay.
One right now.
Shouldn't be that different than in a week.
And we do really have like this like quadruple pandemics happening simultaneously at this moment. Like in addition to COVID and the opioid crisis and police brutality and the environmental crisis, like there's just like this
an economic crisis that is collapsing.
Sextuple. So there's like a million different crises happening all at once. That's I think this is, we don't know what the after looks like.
You know what? I'm just thinking now that I usually think of you as the segue queen, but I don't know how you're going to do this one.
Oh no, well I actually had one. So even though we are not like thinking much about sort of, I mean, I think we're imagining better futures right now, and we're seeing a lot of movement, particularly Black Lives Matter movement, like moving us into hopefully better futures. We also have this opportunity right now where we can look back at the past and see, as per usual, how little things have changed, but how the work has been like happening incrementally throughout time. And that's really what this movie tells me. And so
There we go.
I am a little like, I am hopeful about that. I'm not as like nihilistic as I was coming off as. I just didn't want to make eye contact with strangers. Don't worry, it'll come back.
You can't be that nihilistic when you have a good lipstick. I mean, I
sure
think
can't.
that's... If you take nothing away from the introduction to this podcast, please let it be invest in a good lipstick, even in these downtimes.
Well, and particularly there are some great lipsticks from Black-owned brands and Indigenous-owned brands that are stellar and so beautiful. We should recommend those at the end. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And you're listening to Pop This. And,
the pandemic lockdown sessions still.
Yeah,
I think if we call it
home.
sessions, it has kind of a cool sort of like 70s music vibe, like a like a session, right?
A session? I mean, these definitely do feel more like sessions. Because it turns out that AG has to do way more work in the studio engineering afterwards. So
just to make you sound like Stevie Nicks.
God, would that I could sound like Stevie Nicks. My dreams would be coming true. Stevie Nicks, Tracy Chapman, I would love to sound like either of those two queens. I'm really excited about our episode today because we'll get into it, but I had never seen the movie and now I have, and I feel like my life is better for it. So
agreed.
We are talking about The Watermelon Woman, an essential film of Black and queer cinema, and the first feature-length narrative film written and directed by an out Black lesbian about Black lesbians. And also, just a quick question that AG has written in here for us. How come everyone saw Clerks in the 90s and not this film? And
that was my first thought.
Super guilty. Like, for sure guilty of this.
Super guilty.
I failed, everyone. So...
But why? Like, all of us in the 90s were kind of like, alt culture. We were, paying attention to not mainstream things. And somehow this film passed us by, like all three of us.
I apologize. I don't know. And actually, the whole thing really bothers me because Clerks was actually an indie film, right? Like, it wasn't... We can't even rely on it. Well, it was a big box office thing and everyone I knew was going to it. Well, I did. Everyone I knew did see Clerks. But I mean, like, it wasn't like that big box office thing that was all this Academy Award winning thing. It wasn't Titanic, let's say.
No, but certainly it was like, I think it was championed hard by video store clerks. And I was not, unfortunately, living in a cool neighborhood where like there were a lot of like cool queer people at my video store that might have recommended this film, like, or cool Black people that would have recommended this film. The man that owned the video store across the street from our apartment was a very basic dude who was older. He sold cigarettes by the singles to teenagers. And one time, I am 98% certain I caught him masturbating when I walked in. So...
But you know what? That's kind of how I view the video clerk, really.
I mean, in Clerks, yes. But I mean, this movie also set in a video store. Like, if any people would sort of like, that were not specifically, sort of represented in this film, were going to be interested in championing it, it would be other video store clerks. And I did not personally experience that with my local video store guy.
So I know we'll get to the, the synopsis and all of those things. But yeah, I just want to say I do feel bad that I hadn't seen this movie, and it's really great. It's better than Clerks. Let's just be honest about that.
1000% better than Clerks.
When was the last time any of us have watched Clerks?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, I mean, I watched it, I think, before Clerks 2. And I mean, I have to admit, I do... Sometimes I'm a Kevin Smith apologist, and I just will...
No, I like Kevin Smith quite a bit. I do.
He helped save the Rio Theater.
Yeah, sure, I mean, no, I don't have any... He spends a lot of time in Vancouver. There's the Degrassi thing. I mean, I don't
He's
think
also
he's
just
slighted
he's one of those
indie culture.
Although I also don't want to spend obviously a podcast about the Watermelon Woman talking about Kevin Smith.
No.
But I think there's so many factors that go into why we didn't see this film. There's obviously sort of a racism factor, not calling us racist, but I'm sure we are inherently, but just the way it wasn't promoted, it wasn't Kevin Smith had Miramax money behind him. Cheryl Dunye did not have Miramax money behind her. If anything, she had people trying to take money away from her because of the queer content of the film.
Well, it's that thing that we all had to live with for a very long time, that a white 24-year-old's experience is universal.
Yes.
Even though 100% not true at all. But that's how we have been conditioned to believe. This is the universal experience, is this one. And that's why you're interested, because everyone lives like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, background. Anyone want to read?
I like reading.
Good.
The Watermelon Woman is a 1996 American romantic comedy drama film written, directed, and edited by Cheryl Dunye. It is widely regarded as part of the new queer cinema, a wave of films first identified in the early 90s from filmmakers like Jenny Livingston, who directed the acclaimed documentary Paris is Burning, Greg Araki, Gus Van Sant, and Rose Troche. In these films, queer protagonists took the lead while critically acknowledging the existence of LGBT folks and their narratives on the fringe of heteronormative society. Identity and sexuality were taken to be forever in flux. And that's from the Toronto International Film Festival. Okay, we could do the synopsis. Do you want to do the synopsis? Someone?
AG?
Sure. The Watermelon Woman follows the efforts of a young black lesbian filmmaker, played by Dunye herself, to find out everything she can about a black actress known as the Watermelon Woman, who played maids in 1930s black and white films. Following various leads, the main character slowly discovers the history of the actress and the fact that she had a long affair with a white woman who is one of Hollywood's few female directors. And that's from the LA Times.
I love the way that this movie blends that sort of narrative and documentary and comedy and autobiography. And I love that I didn't entirely know what was fiction and what was nonfiction until the very end, and the last title card from Cheryl Dunye about having to create her own history.
Yeah.
I
think what it is I think it was a really fun story to watch. It was romantic, it was sweet, it was fun, but yet at the same time I really enjoyed the mystery sort of aspect to it, that quest to find out information that, of course, when you start, as it's pointed out, start looking into the past of something, you start illuminating things about yourself and where you are and who you are. And I thought that it was seamlessly done, all of those things coming into one really great movie.
Yeah, and someone pointed out that it's you don't quite realize if the Watermelon Woman character and the historical bits are true or not until the end of the movie. That happens to a lot of people. And that's just, it's, when you think about it, it's because nobody knows anything about black history in cinema, and it can, know if that's true or not. There's very, very few people. It's not common knowledge. And so you can't immediately say oh, I've never heard of that. That can't be true. And that gave Cheryl the space to play with that in the film.
Yeah. And I'm never I personally was never obviously I knew that we were watching certainly there were fictionalized elements for sure. And obviously, yes, the work is fiction. Just to be clear, but I really loved sort of seeing Cheryl's mom play herself, and she was so natural on screen and so good. And Cheryl herself, what an amazing actor as well. To direct yourself, I think would be such an incredible challenge, and particularly to give sort of such a nuanced performance and to do so many things. and so many different styles of filmmaking in one picture. Like I was like, how is this even happening? It felt, and particularly because I think like so many directors are not naturally that good in front of the camera. I'm trying to think like, we've obviously got like a few famous folks who direct and act, but rarely act themselves in their own pictures. And I think that must be very complicated.
Yeah, I do too. But I just thought it was there was such heart to it. I think that's what drives you along in a story like this. And I'm not saying Clerks didn't have heart. I don't know why I'm going to keep coming back to Clerks, but I just felt like this story, I wanted to get to the end. I wanted to see good things happen. I wanted it to work out. I wanted her to find out. And I'm glad that there was I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I'm glad there was an ending that seemed like that she could say to herself that there was some joy in this woman's life.
Yeah, finding out more about like Faye and what that was like, and I thought like it also handles all of the sort of different all of the different realities. So like there's the joy and there's the art and there's the sort of having to work at the video store with a boss who is sort of not the greatest kind of, it's not wonderful, and running this like video production business on the side because she wants to be a filmmaker and she has these like really wonderful, this creative vision that she wants to realize, and the ways in which that's complicated by a number of factors, including, some things that we still see obviously echoed today. Like, she can't stand outside a closed building with her video camera without getting harassed by cops and called a boy and a crackhead. And, just like it interrupts her life. It interrupts the film. They don't dwell on it for a very long time. And I think that that's like a really, she's moving through all of the facets of Cheryl, the character's life. And really giving us this insight into like a Philadelphia that I'm just really not familiar with. I've never even been to Philadelphia. And I feel like I got to see so much about its history and the gentrification and, the queer spaces and sort of like historically Black spaces and how those were shifting in the 90s. And I feel like I don't get to see that very often.
I also felt there was some notes of Get Out to me with the girl she was dating, Diana, who had this definite issue with wanting to date only Black people. Man, woman, didn't seem to be Diana's something she had to think about. And then I thought about Get Out, and I was thinking about how when he's dating that woman and then he finds out that she's been dating Black men, obviously, boom. More to bring them there to get their brains taken out and things. But anyway, just that sense of the dating of a white person and not entirely sure who they're dating.
And what their motivation is, and like just treating Black people as as an outfit to try on instead of an actual person.
Yeah, and actually her line, Diana's line, "Oh, my parents were hippies. They're fine with this." Excuse me? What?
Well, and bodies fetishize, and then she like tone polices her when the woman is a huge racist when she goes to like her house and has this confrontation with this white woman who's obviously homophobic and racist. And I just, it's watching whiteness enter itself over and over and over again, in all of these like really, commonplace ways that happen all the time.
Yeah, and
this might be a good Camille. Sorry, Camille Paglia, like just her whole playing herself sequence. I just about texted both of you, and I was just like screaming at the top of my like lungs internally.
I feel like it's been a while since I thought about her too. It's just, there was a time when that was the only person you heard from. She was everywhere.
She took up a lot of space for a long time.
Yeah, but I guess if you were asked people who's your favorite, outspoken feminist writer, a lot of people would still say her.
I thought the movie was just really funny throughout.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It's very, very
it's
funny.
Laugh out loud funny throughout. Like you laugh at the Camille stuff, but like even the sort of difficult stuff, like the video that she sees this actress from the 1930s in Faye for the first time is called Plantation Memories. And
yes,
like, that's awful, but it's also like hilarious that she made up a movie called that. And, like it's, I think that it's very like 90s humor. Like finding that humor in kind of like dark things.
I also think this might be a good place to add that there's been a lot of disappointment that the most popular movie on Netflix right now is The Help.
Oh my God. That is the kind of film that basically Cheryl is making fun of in this movie.
Yeah. And even the people in The Help are, this is not the movie you should be gravitating to. This, if you are really wanting to understand a Black experience, this is not the one anyone at all is recommending.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, Plantation Memories in the movie, like she likes watching the movie. She likes that character, like Faye's character. She's obsessed with Faye's character. But
that's the only place she can see.
Exactly. Like it's the only place that she can see representations of Blackness on film. But at the same time, because, like the things that are happening with how, Gone with the Wind is being removed from streaming services and stuff like that. Like it's kind of interesting to think like back in the 90s that this character was like not like, oh, I want to destroy this movie and nobody should ever watch it because it's horrible. She was kind of like, I want to learn about this movie. I want to learn about this character. I want to find out who this woman is. And that's something, I've been sort of reading about Gone with the Wind is, like Hattie McDaniel is in that movie and she won an Academy Award and, like her work can't be just totally erased because she's
she did have to
it's complicated because you would want to watch it for that, but at the same time I have a really hard time believing anyone's tuning into that 4-hour epic and actually watching the whole thing.
Well, I mean, I think that if it's put into context, like this is which is being done, like I think that like, it's going to be, if anybody shows Gone with the Wind again, it would be put in context by someone talking about, the history of slavery and the point of view from which this movie is told and all of that before the movie. And I think, that makes a lot of sense. But I mean, it is a snapshot of like how white people see slavery. They romanticize it, right? And that can't be forgotten. That shouldn't be forgotten. That's the way that's the way they looked back on slavery.
It makes me think of with that context, because I remember going in Hawaii to Pearl Harbor. Have either of you done that?
No.
So the ships that were sunk, when you go to see them, there's a little boat that takes you out to them. You have to watch a movie first, which is context and tells you how the United States and Japan got to this situation where that happened. And I remember sitting in there going, this is extremely fair. This is like a really fair telling of this story. This was not suggesting one group was right or wrong. This was just the history of that event. And I remember how I just felt like, wow, that is a pretty smart thing they've done. They don't just let you go out there and look at a sunken American warship. They make you do the work. They sit you down and say, you're going to watch this movie before you go out there. So it is kind of interesting that we have allowed so many other things to not have that context. As we get further and further away from those events, they become so much more important to have that moment where you sit with the story before, because you've come there with all these judgments. People are going to come with all of these, and then all of a sudden you're asked to sit down and you experience it. And then when you go out there, it's just a totally different feeling.
Yeah. And I mean, I do think that like context is really key. And I think both of you, make that really clear. I mean, I think about with Gone with the Wind, like, I think about what becomes classified as a classic film, and I think about how it has taken up space from so many other films for decades upon decades upon decades. And that's not to negate that it doesn't deserve to sort of have like a critical, close examination of the ways white people do romanticize slavery. But I think it has just taken up so much space for so long that like a knee jerk, and I mean, I do think it's like sort of a need, like a decision to remove it from a streaming service is not necessarily censorship. It's like corporate lip service to try and, and also it can function as a commentary that right now, this is not a movie that we should be turning to white people. Like a lot of white people who are watching it are not watching it for the right reasons. And I mean, you can't get into sort of telling people how to watch something, but I certainly know that like a bunch of people who are crying about the removal of Gone with the Wind are not like desiring it to still exist, as a streamable thing right now because they want to have a conversation about, romanticizing slavery. Like they want to still sort of like be on the wrong side of history. And even though that's not what the movie even does, like I just think like it's been such a complicated thing to have it just lingering so much as like the ultimate film that people have turned to for so long as like this is like a definitive movie of our time. And I just wonder who the hour is. And we know who the hour is. The hour is mostly white people. Mm-hmm. And I like...
Speaking of, like not taking up space, and this is the first, as we mentioned in the intro, the first film made by a Black lesbian about Black lesbians. But also the next one I was reading, like there still aren't that many films about Black lesbian stories made by Black lesbian directors. Like the next one was made in 2011.
2011 from 1996?
After 1996?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Which was that?
It was Dee Rees.
Yeah.
I think making Pariah in 2011.
Oh my god.
Wow. Yeah, that's a gap. That's a long gap.
That's horrifying.
And then since 2011, what have we got now?
Good question.
Like 7 a year, right? Like that's where we're making up for lost time, right? Oh my god. I mean,
that's and I did see in Andrea's notes that that she said like never mind, like part of you said you didn't even know Philadelphia that way. A lot of people, she said, don't even know what a queer Black person looks like. They don't know who they are. They haven't seen them. They haven't spent time with them. I would say that from watching a lot of the movies I watch, they seem to show up as sidekicks in movies.
Well, and supporting characters and like...
supporting characters in like rom-coms or something like that. They're kind of not they're not the main focus like this movie is.
Well, also they're often, let's face it, like played by straight women playing gay.
Yeah. Like
it's just, I mean, that's a super frustrating thing too. I mean, I think one of the things that's like so interesting is something that you have in the outline, AG, and it's by Lydia Agwang for TIFF. I'm just going to quote her because I don't need to paraphrase her. But anyway, the self-reflexive, reality-based writing that Dunye so artfully employed is becoming increasingly common in much of today's film and television writing. Women like Issa Rae and Mindy Kaling write and produce content injected with significant details of their real, marginalized identities, featuring lead characters with cultural backgrounds and narratives heavily based on the lives of the writers themselves. Like Dunye, they play themselves on screen. And I think that that's just so critical about, again, who gets to make the content, who gets to take up the space, who we get to center who gets access to money and who, I mean, the access to money thing is just such a, it's such a problem because so often it's, there's still these sort of like legacy models where in a story that's by a Black person, you hear from so many directors that they have had the feedback, well, we've already got one film about a Black person, but like you can have 10 white stories, for lack of a better term, and typically 10 white stories about straight white men. And again, that what you said earlier, Lisa, about it being a universal experience, we know that it's not, and we have to stop. Like, we just have to stop allowing that to sort of dictate the pop culture that we both consume and support at home, and in a studio model.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And don't we want to explore? Isn't that the point? I mean, not to sound ridiculous, but isn't that the point of art, so that we can experience other lives and experiences?
I like your art voice.
Did you read that factoid about how the film was made for a tiny budget of $300,000 and got a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts? And a Republican, Peter Hoekstra, tried unsuccessfully to get his colleagues in Congress to deduct Dunye's $31,500 grant from the NEA budget, arguing that the organization was funding a series of gay and lesbian films that, quote, most Americans would find offensive, and referring to the Watermelon Woman specifically as, quote, patently offensive and possibly pornographic.
Oh my God. This man's idea of patently offensive and possibly pornographic.
What was the offensive part?
Says so much. Well,
the sex. I think he was probably referring to the
sex scene.
Yeah.
The one sex scene.
I bet he was also offended by like, the white woman getting called a white woman. Like the number of white women who are insulted by being called a white woman. Like he sounds like the kind of guy who would take offense to that. He would. I'm just
baffled, but not really.
Pornography and reverse racism at the top of his lungs.
Yeah, it's quite boring actually. So we should probably move right along because whoever that guy is an idiot, and we've spent far too much time on him. But you know,
I know.
I am slightly curious about what he's doing now. Probably still in office, right?
I mean, I haven't checked and I'm not going to, but I'm just gonna like say dead.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go dead, and I don't even want to know. I'm just
okay, because I can find out here pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, you show off with the internet.
Yeah, how did you know that's what I was going to use?
Show off with the internet.
Our Mr. Hoekstra has failed up as they do. He is now the United States ambassador to the Netherlands.
Amazing. I love so much about the 1996 setting of this film, speaking of the World Wide Web, before the World Wide Web. And like, this is going to sound kind of silly, but going into the archives and going into like the libraries with Cheryl and like watching the films. And when Cheryl goes to interview her mom's friend who knew Faye and tells her about like the life and everything, and she has this like really meaningful conversation with her about what it was like back when they met and when they were at the clubs together and what all of that experience was like. It was really transformational. Like it transported you to a different time and place, and I can completely understand why Cheryl wrote that scene, because it's really, I think, cathartic to name it and like sort of hear about it, because it doesn't really exist in most people's memories. Like they don't know about it, And so like, again, writing history, even as fiction, is a really powerful tool for like resistance.
Agreed.
Yeah. And I think, what is very like eye-opening and fresh about this movie is that it establishes what the Black lesbian gaze like looks like on film.
Yes.
And we never get a chance to really see that point of view. And, there's so few films even today that that's what makes this film so sort of like precious and notable.
For anyone listening, this is a journey for a lot of us to discover a lot of stories that we haven't been exposed to. Yes, we could have done our research ourselves, but now we're here. So I'm, so happy to get this chance to dig into films like The Watermelon Woman.
Yeah,
me too. And I just love like thinking about like some of the quotes that AG, you turned up from Cheryl Dunye. I think like about this a lot. Like she says, movies are about making money, but when you're in it to make cinema and statements and art and media that matters in a different way, you're saying that it's going to take a while, that I'm not going to have money, but I'm going to make a mark. And I think that that's like what a wonderful, perfect statement about, making things that matter.
Well, classic 90s Gen X kind of auteur filmmaker attitude.
I also think white people need to see movies where they are not the savior of things. In fact, they are rather problematic in a lot of ways. And I think that we have seen ourselves censored so many times. I can, the fact that we have a name for it, a white savior movie, tells you how often it happens when it becomes an expression. So I think it's really important to see a film like this.
Yeah, because like throughout this movie, she's kind of like both in the historical storyline and in her current storyline, like the characters are being like casually policed by white women like throughout the entire movie. And it kind of it's just like a constant thing that happens. And I think that's quite notable.
And I think it's articulated over and over again throughout the film, but it is the definitive statement I think on that is when I believe Cheryl's reading the note from Faye's partner of 20 years who is in the hospital. She's supposed to interview her and then she can't. And she's reading the note that the woman left her instead. And the woman is like, why do you want to like make it about Faye and her relationship to this white woman? Like that woman tortured her, was not good to her. And Faye spent 20 years trying to like move past that. And like, if you're going to tell this story, you need to tell this story from the point of view of Black lesbians, not like making room for this, director Martha Page in it. And Cheryl, I think, responds to that in the film, like really clearly about why that does interest her and why she is going to sort of include that part of the narrative. And I think she makes a really good statement for why that makes sense for her. But I think it's so important to have that sort of, that actual like critical self assessment within the film so that she can sort of have that conversation with herself as a filmmaker for the audience. And I thought that was really genius. So just with regards to like, I'm going to backtrack for a second, Andrea Gin, to something you had said about it being like a Gen X thing about like a filmmaker's approach to filmmaking, which is to make movies that matter and understand that you're not going to make money. I think that is also, I have recently gone on a bit of a tear against Gen X as a stuck in between in the like weird 3-year no man's land between millennial and Gen X. Apparently I'm a zennial. Anyway, whatever. Regardless, doesn't really matter. But I think it speaks overall to sort of one of the key differences that people talk about when someone is an artist who's making like movies that are deeply personal to representations of their identity versus artists who maybe don't have as much personally invested into their artwork. And so I think it can cross genres into like filmmaking and music and painting and writing and so many different aspects. And I think it's one of those attitudes that carries across different age groups as well and different like markers of generations. Because I think there's something kind of, I don't know, there's something like some deeply socialist and deeply sort of like art has meaning and hopeful and sort of I don't know. It's a really like beautiful thing that I admire a lot. Not to say like you shouldn't make money from your art, because you should. If you need to survive and live, and people don't have trust funds, and I'm sure Cheryl Dunye doesn't have a trust fund, and that's not the life that she's been living. But yeah.
I mean, she's kind of held true to it over the last 25 years. Like because she talked about it she made a movie called My Baby's Daddy in 2004. And her quote from that was, "It took me over the edge and I said, I'm not going to do this ever again." By this, she meant the studio experience. And so she just stopped trying to make Hollywood movies. And I mean, since then, like her recent things are she's directed episodes of Queen Sugar, Dear White People on Netflix, and All Rise, which is something you said you've been watching.
I love All Rise so much.
Yeah, and then she had a short film recently called Black is Blue, and she's launched Jingletown Films, her own production company based in Oakland.
That's awesome.
So she's remains like steadfastly sort of off the beaten path in the film industry.
It's discouraging though that I mean, I'm happy if she's happy and getting the opportunities that she wants to do. But when you see people have such a great vision and so great storytellers, but it's not that norm and so we all miss out. We all don't get to experience it. And I don't know, my hope is, and don't burst my bubble, but is that one of the big reasons we weren't able to see this film when we came out is because we only did have movie theaters to go to. We only had certain people that would program that movie theater. We only had critics that would talk, like a Roger and Ebert, or Siskel and Ebert, that would talk about certain films. And that's what you went to see. And that's all that was really talked about. And you had to really dig. If you wanted to become a cinephile, you probably had to go and find some publication. You have to probably get the Village Voice, which I did buy when I lived here in Vancouver, and things. But you had to, really try to do that. And now when we have Netflix and we have streaming services and we have this ability to see so many more stories and told by so many more people. Anyway, that's my hope, is that our streaming world is much more open and democratic than we ever were with films in the past.
Yeah, but I think it's like there's still like movies like this are few and far between, and we have to sort of do the work in digging them up and figuring out how to watch them, and like it just takes more work than just casually like flipping through Netflix and deciding to
you
watch
still
them.
have to work at it, but it's available to you in a place that you can
totally.
that people are getting more opportunities to tell stories, and that's my hope. That I want to be hopeful.
I mean, I hope that Cheryl Dunye's production company is part of like the journey that makes that happen. I'm sure it will be.
Well, we're not going anywhere, so
Nope.
You keep making streaming stuff for us because we'll be there. I mean, we watched this in the Criterion Collection, right?
Yeah, it's streaming.
So
for
I
free
mean,
in Criterion
right there, that is an ability that at one time we did not have, right? To look through all of those films, to choose one. So I'm going to remain hopeful that our new streaming future is much better to filmmakers who have different stories to tell us. I'm not saying I'm not excited about Avatar. No, I'm not. Bad joke. Because I am not excited about Avatar 2 at all.
Couldn't
like
care.
It can wait forever. Forever.
Yeah, I have zero interest in that. But does this movie pop?
Yes.
A million.
Super
Yes.
pop.
Yes.
Yeah, a billion pops for you. Thank you so much, the Watermelon Woman. We also love to leave our episodes on something we recommend. So, Lisa, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I was kindly given this as a birthday present, this book that I don't know anything about, but it came from my friend Patrice all the way in Spain.
Hold on a second. Was it your birthday recently?
No.
And we didn't know about
But I
it?
only am now getting around to reading it.
Okay, fine.
Well, actually, it took a long time in the mail, too.
All right, fine.
So, no, it was not
I feel
my
like you're
birthday
one of those
recently.
secret birthday people.
I am.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
It's in Florendon month.
Go ahead. Tell us about your recommendation.
So I was very excited to receive this book, Sea Monsters by Chloe Argis, a British writer. And I just want to give you a little taste of what's to come on the back here. One autumn afternoon in Mexico City, 17-year-old Luisa does not return home from school. Instead, she boards a bus to the Pacific coast with the reckless, impulsive Tomas, a boy she barely knows. Their quest to track down a troupe of Ukrainian dwarves who have recently escaped a touring circus.
Wow.
So that's where I'm headed on my next book journey.
That sounds like a adventure.
It does, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
And there are many good reviews for it. So that is what I'm reading right now.
That's great. AG, what about you?
I wanted to recommend this NPR podcast called Code Switch. Particularly the episode they put out this week was called Why Now, White People? And it kind of...
Yeah, fair question. Fair question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they kind of delve into this question of why all of a sudden white folks care so much about racial injustice when it's been going on for a long time. And so they just had a lot of interesting analysis about, you know, how it's partially Trump, it's partially, you know, it was partially the pandemic, it was partially, you know, this consensus because people feel more comfortable speaking out about things when everybody else is doing it at the same time.
Yeah.
And you know, like it's just fascinating to hear them. They get feedback from their audience. They kind of talk to experts and stuff like that. And I guess like one of the key concerns that came out of it for me is that, like, you know, they feel like different tribes of people are banding together to participate in these protests, and a large part of that could be people who hate Trump. And the concern is that, like, you know, if there's an election this fall and he gets voted out of office, will people then just forget about, you know,
Yeah.
all this being, you know, anti-racist? And so it's a very interesting podcast episode, and it's a great podcast in general, but this episode is really fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to recommend a record, as I often do. Everyone's like, stop talking about music. Talk about something else. No, I only want to talk about this.
I'm going to recommend a lipstick. No.
Oh, yeah, actually, if you want some cool, an Indigenous-owned beauty company is Cheekbone Beauty, and a Black-owned beauty company, Pat McGrath. But music... a record by Obuxum is a Toronto-based Somali-Canadian producer and beat maker. This is a quote from the biography, whose lush and characteristic sound celebrates storytelling. And the album is called Rebirth, and it's just stunning. Like, there's no better way to say that. It's a really beautiful record. It's on the Blairist Long list. I highly recommend it. If you haven't checked it out, you can go listen to it on Bandcamp, buy it there, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful album.
Excellent.
Lovely.
Well, amazing episode, ladies. Thank you.
I'm glad we watched this movie. I'm so...
Oh my God.
I am very glad. I hope everyone does. I hope everyone just does themselves a favor and watches this movie, because you won't be disappointed. You'll have a fantastic time.
Streaming free on Criterion.
Yeah,
there you
get
go.
in there. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. You can hang out with us on our social medias, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You could email us at popthiscollective@gmail.com if there's a film that you want us to know about, or a TV show that you want us to know about, pop culture you want us to know about. Please just let us know. You can rate and review us. 5 stars. 5 stars.
And Andrea Gin is our co-host and producer, who has, as we always acknowledge, a lot of work ahead of her. So thank you, Andrea.
This episode particularly beset by technological challenges, and so sorry about that, AG.
Yeah, you won't even know I stepped on a dog and a kettle went off. Those are things that you won't even know.
Until now.
Until now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.